Hello, everyone. She was once called the doll who came to life. But behind that porcelain face, wide-set eyes, and angelic symmetry lived a soul that would not be molded. Jessica Stam was not born into beauty. She was not groomed for fame. She came from a quiet Canadian farm. But when she walked into fashion, she shattered every window with her stare. Photographers adored her. Designers built entire shows around her face. Marc Jacobs even named a handbag after her. Yet as fast as she ascended, she began to unravel quietly, painfully, and in front of the entire industry. This is not just the story of another pretty face. This is the story of the accidental supermodel who defined a generation and almost lost herself trying to survive it. Jessica Stam was born on April 23, 1986 in Kincardine, a small town in rural Ontario, Canada. Her childhood was marked by simplicity, structure, and silence, the kind of life that rarely makes it onto magazine covers. She was one of 7 siblings in a devout Lutheran family. Her parents, strict and grounded, raised their children on values of discipline and modesty. Her father worked as a church minister, and Jessica spent most of her early years between school chores and church pews. She never imagined herself as beautiful. In fact, as a child, she was shy, awkward, and self-conscious about her towering height and pale skin. She was teased by classmates. Her long limbs and wide-set eyes made her feel alien in her own skin. While other girls played dress-up or dreamed of stardom, Jessica avoided mirrors. She was more interested in books, in staying quiet, in fitting in. But beneath the quiet demeanor, there was something brewing, a raw elegance, a magnetic stillness, and a face that would soon become one of the most recognizable in the world. Her family had no connections to fashion. Her hometown had no modeling agencies. In her world, beauty was natural, modest, and unspoken. The idea of runways, haute couture, and global campaigns was not just foreign, it was impossible. And yet, in that unlikely environment, a seed had been planted. There were hints, subtle, fleeting, that Jessica was not like the others. It was in the way people paused when they saw her, the way strangers complimented her bone structure before she even knew what that meant, the way she could sit in silence and still command the room without speaking a word. She did not know it yet, but the world was already beginning to look at her, and soon it would never look away. Jessica Stam's journey into modeling was not planned. It was, quite literally, an accident. One afternoon, while visiting a local coffee shop in Canada, a talent scout named Michelle Miller noticed her. There was something magnetic about the way Jessica stood still, but not passive. Her face was unforgettable, like porcelain that had been cracked and rebuilt with intention. Miller approached her with a question that would change everything. "Have you ever thought about modeling?" Jessica had not. She was just 17, a church-going girl from the countryside who had never worn high heels, let alone imagined walking the runways of Milan or Paris. The idea seemed absurd, but something inside her curiosity, rebellion, instinct made her say yes. Her first test shoots were awkward. She did not know how to pose. She did not know where to look. She did not know how to be the version of herself that others suddenly expected her to be. But behind the camera, something clicked. The lens did not see an insecure teenager. It saw symmetry. It saw contradiction. It saw power in stillness. She was quickly signed by IMG Models, and almost overnight, her life transformed. She went from walking gravel roads in Ontario to strutting runways in New York, from kneeling in pews to posing for Vogue Italia, from silence to spectacle. Her family was shocked. Coming from a conservative background, the idea of Jessica entering fashion and industry built on vanity, exposure, and excess was difficult for them to accept. There were conversations, tension. worries about modesty, about values, about losing the girl they had raised so carefully. But Jessica was firm. She saw this not as a rejection of her past, but as a reinvention, a chance to be seen in a world that had always asked her to stay quiet. Her early days in modeling were not easy. She was too unique for the commercial world, too strange for catalogs. But the high fashion scene, the world of art and provocation, embraced her. Stephen Maisel, one of the most influential photographers of the time, became her mentor and champion. He shot her repeatedly for Vogue Italia, elevating her to a new level almost overnight. Jessica did not smile. She did not flirt with the camera. She looked through it as if she knew something it did not. Her stare became her signature, her body, a canvas of contradictions, soft and hard, vulnerable and dangerous. The industry had found its new muse. By the early 2000s, she was no longer the girl from Kincardine. She was Stam, a singular name, a brand, a presence that designers fought to book. But with fame came pressure, with beauty came scrutiny, and with every new cover, Jessica felt a little more removed from the girl she once was. The modeling world had discovered her, but she was still trying to discover herself. By the mid-2000s, Jessica Stam was not just part of fashion, she was fashion. Her face defined a generation of modeling that blurred the line between ethereal and edgy. With her icy gaze, delicate features, and ghost-like elegance, she became the face of an era obsessed with high-contrast beauty. Everyone wanted Stam, but no one could quite explain her. She opened shows for Dior, Chanel, and Valentino. She was the face of major campaigns from Marc Jacobs to Anna Sui, from Bulgari to Giorgio Armani. On runways, she moved like a shadow fluid, graceful, almost too perfect to be real. Her expression rarely changed, but somehow, every look told a new story. She did not need theatrics. Her stillness was her rebellion. Jessica became a favorite of legendary photographers. Stephen Maisel, Mario Testino, and Patrick de Marchelier all captured her at her most iconic in editorials. She could morph from futuristic alien to Renaissance painting to androgynous warrior and never lose the essence of who she was. She was a chameleon without ever trying to be. In 2005, her place in history was sealed when Marc Jacobs designed a handbag and named it the Stam. It was a model whose persona was so powerful, so stylish, that it inspired a luxury item that would go on to define mid-2000s fashion. The Stam bag became a cult phenomenon, carried by celebrities, bloggers, and trendsetters. But for Jessica, it was both a tribute and a weight. She began appearing in the Victoria's Secret fashion show, an unusual choice for a high-fashion model known for her cerebral beauty. Yet even in wings and sparkle, Stam carried a kind of quiet authority. She stood out not by being louder, but by being more haunting. Her name was often grouped with the Dolls, a new wave of supermodels that included Gemma Ward, Lily Donaldson, and Caroline Trentini. But even among them, Stam was different. She looked like porcelain, but moved like steel. At her peak, she was everywhere, every magazine, every runway, every designer's muse. And yet, there was always something distant in her presence, as if she was walking through the fashion world, but never truly belonging to it. Her success was undeniable, her impact unforgettable. But behind the flawless facade, cracks were forming. And soon, the world would see what happens when perfection becomes too heavy to carry. Jessica Stam never fit neatly into the expectations of her industry. While the fashion world applauded excess, she remained minimalist. While others cultivated scandal or exaggerated personas, Stam maintained an enigmatic silence. Her face may have been everywhere, but her voice, her real thoughts, her real self was rarely heard. And that was intentional. She once said she felt like an outsider even on the inside. It was not false modesty, it was truth. In an industry obsessed with extroversion and allure, Jessica brought something colder, more distant and strangely more honest. She refused to flirt with the camera. She did not giggle through interviews or play the celebrity game. And though she was often grouped with the other doll-face models of her generation, Jessica resisted being reduced to aesthetics. Her look may have been defined by fragility, but her presence screamed defiance. She did not chase fame. She did not bend herself to fit commercial molds. She turned down roles that felt exploitative. She avoided campaigns that sexualized or diluted her image. And when other models built social media empires, Stam remained largely offline, uninterested in becoming a brand influencer. But perhaps her boldest act of rebellion was speaking publicly about the darker side of modeling. In the late 2000s, as eating disorders and substance abuse scandals rocked the industry, Jessica bravely admitted to her own struggles. She talked about the loneliness of fame, the pressure to be perfect, the way the industry praised you for looking ill and punished you for gaining weight. By stepping out of silence, she broke the mold not just with her look, but with her voice. It was not a press stunt. It was a confession raw, unfiltered, and necessary. She later became an advocate for mental health in fashion, working quietly behind the scenes to support younger models and push for safer, more ethical standards. It was not glamorous work, but it was real. Jessica was not trying to be iconic. She was trying to survive. And in that survival, she became a symbol for every model who felt invisible behind their beauty. Her power did not come from shouting. It came from refusing to pretend. At the height of her fame, Jessica Stam began to disappear. Not all at once, not dramatically, but gradually like a light dimming, too slowly to notice until the room turns dark. By the early 2010s, her face, once ubiquitous in campaigns and on catwalks, was seen less and less. For fans, it felt like fashion had quietly let her go. But behind the scenes, Jessica was dealing with demons that had been silently growing for years. She opened up in rare interviews about the intense pressure she faced as a young model. Entering the industry at just 17, she was thrust into a world of constant travel, scrutiny, and objectification. There was no training, no emotional guidance, just bright lights and brutal expectations. She admitted to struggling with drug use. "The industry," she said, "rewarded you for pushing your limits, for being thin, exhausted, silent. It was a culture that glamorized destruction and punished vulnerability." Jessica, like many others, fell into it. Her health began to decline. The sparkle in her eyes faded. There were stories, whispers of missed shows, of breakdowns, of moments backstage when she simply could not go on. Some called it burnout, others called it rebellion, but Jessica called it survival. And then she stepped away. There was no official goodbye, no press release or farewell shoot, just silence. She retreated from the fashion world to find herself, to heal, to reclaim her body, her identity, her peace. For years, she stayed quiet. Occasionally, she appeared at charity events or fashion retrospectives. But the Jessica Stam that had once haunted the pages of Vogue seemed unreachable. A ghost of a time when models were muses, not influencers. When mystery was power, her disappearance sparked curiosity. Was she okay? Would she come back? Why had the girl with the perfect face walked away when the world still wanted more? But perhaps that was the point. Jessica Stam did not owe the world more. She had already given it everything: her image, her youth, her silence. And when it became too much, she did the bravest thing a model could do. She left, not for drama, not for reinvention, but for herself. Jessica Stam never needed to shout to be heard. Her legacy lives not in headlines or scandals, but in the haunting power of her presence, in the way she stood still when everyone else posed, in the quiet resistance behind her stare, in the decision to walk away before she was broken beyond repair. She helped redefine what a supermodel could be, not just a clothes hanger, not just a fantasy, but a human being, with limits, with a story. In recent years, Jessica has slowly re-emerged, older, wiser, and more grounded. She speaks openly about motherhood, about balance, about healing. She no longer chases the camera. And maybe that is what makes her more iconic than ever. She survived an industry that does not care who you are, only what you look like. And in surviving, she left behind a powerful message. You can be beautiful, you can be successful, but you can also say no. She may not be on every magazine cover anymore, but for those who remember her, Jessica Stam never disappeared. She simply reclaimed her own reflection,